Hi everybody, Kevin at Cobalt Glass and Custom Works. Today we are going to cut a circle. What I have here is a piece of 3mm plate glass, just window pane glass. Pick it up at any glass shop if they have any spare pieces kicking around or whatever for practicing on, until you get comfortable cutting circles in stained glass and stuff like that. You can do lots of different things with circles. This is one I use for fusing. I just cut a piece out. And the way I broke it, I separated it, and I have a piece where I could cut an inside circle and fuse them together. Other times, what we're going to do here, we're just going to show a quick how to make the score and break the circle out the traditional way. So what I have here is I have a Silberschnitt circle cutter. On the cutter is 4 little marks, and those represent, when they join together, marks the center of the circle cutter. So the center dot right here. On your cutter, depending on what you have, it's hard to see here, but there are markings on there. This is inches, some are in centimeters, millimeters, depending on what you're using. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the center of this. So this is 9.5 by 9.5. So we're going to draw a diagonal line one direction, and we're going to go the other direction, corner to corner. Now that should represent the center of our glass. So we take our cutter with our lines and we make our marks line up with those lines in the cutter. So now that should be centered. So we should be even from the edge of our cutter to the edge of the glass all the way around. When I'm fusing, I don't usually use cutter oil. This is Novacan cutter oil. When I'm doing stained glass, I will. One thing to also remember is to wash your glass before you start to cut on it, because there can be residue, especially with window pane glass. There's a desiccant they put on the glass between the sheets so that they don't stick together when moisture is present. So what we can do is just put a little dab here, and then what I do is I just kind of lightly run my cutter around without pressure, and all that's doing is that's transferring the oil in the circle. We'll put that to the side. Got our glasses here. Let's put these on. And then what I like to do is I like to just hold the suction cup so that it doesn't let go and walk away on you. And then start somewhere comfortable. I like to start closer to my wrist here so that when I come back around, it's you're not all twisted up too badly. And you want to listen to that score sound just as you're cutting straight lines. And when you hear that click, you're dropping off from here, you're dropping into the cut, the score line that you made when you started. So when you hear that, just stop. Don't keep going, because you don't want to go over the glass multiple times. And I like to wipe the oil off, just so that I'm not transferring it all over the place. And then we'll flip this over. We want to find our score line, which is here. And I like to kind of go back to where I started. You don't have to, but I like to start pushing down where there's a little bit more glass rather than starting at the edge right here. Even though when you start, you're going to have to push around that edge. So if you leave yourself a little bit more room between your score line and the outside edge, I could have made this a little bigger. It does will sometimes help eliminate with shelling on these shorter edges. So we're going to find our spot, we're going to push down, and you'll hear it snap. Now we've started our run. So now what we want to do is we just want to push and chase that run all the way around to join up over there. Now we heard that click, so now we've gone all the way around. So now glass is going to want to break twice. So what we want to do is we want to flip that over, and we'll find a nice meaty portion here again, and we'll push down. Now we heard that click. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of chase around until we hear another. We may hear it click here again, we may not, but you'll hear it kind of almost hiss. So there, we should be back to where we started. That other clicking is just my kiln. So then what we want to do now is we want to put some relief cuts in. So we're going to stay away from that line, just slightly this side of the line. Because if we run our cutter in too far, then what we do is we run the risk of this actually running all the way across. So you want to stay behind the line about 1/16 of an inch. We'll make a score. Make a score. And another one. We'll take our run pliers, and you'll hear it click. And just kind of work your way around, and then they'll come apart. And you don't want to put too much pressure on there, because if you do, then you're on the risk of this shelling your circle. And there we go. And where it really comes in into play, where you really want to be careful, is when you're cutting a mirror. Because then if you get a shell in the mirror face, then you have to kind of grind that out. And then if you get one in the silvering on the back, then you can have some real troubles. So there, I hope that works for you, and give it a try, and don't be shy. And when you get into doing the textured glass, it is a little bit more tricky, especially when you're using an opaque, because it's very hard to see around the other side. Like when you flip the glass over, it's hard to see where your run is. So you just have to mark where the distance from the edge of the glass to where your circle is, and then just kind of follow it around. Another thing, instead of breaking it out in 4 sections like that, what I do quite often is I will just run one score. I'll snap it, and I'll separate these 2 pieces, and I'll wiggle them loose, and then you end up with a full piece. And then when you fuse them, you can cut a center piece the same size as the inside, and then you fuse them together, and then you have yourself a nice dish or whatever. You can slump it into a shape, or you can use this, and you can save these pieces, join them up, and make them into stained glass art, a border. It's endless. You just use your imagination and get creative. Well, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this was informative. Please like and subscribe, and take care.